Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making this dog-shaped treat box. This is in fact two treat boxes. We have one here, which is accessed at the back, and then we have another one, which is in the head, like so. The measurements for the boxes are, the body is roughly 2 3/4 times 4 3/4 times 3 1/4, and the head is roughly 3 1/4 across, 3 1/2 deep and 2 1/2 high. There are a few things which I'm going to mention at the start in relation to this project. It is easiest to use double-sided cardstock because then you don't need to think about whether you're making the left or the right hand sides. We are going to be working with slanted sides and diagonals, which always makes the cutting and measuring a little tricky. I have tried to keep the working in 16ths to a minimum. When we make the box, I'm going to work with a couple of pieces at a time so then you can then glue them together. But before you glue the pieces, just offer them up against each other so you can make any adjustments or recut if you need to. The cardstock I've used for this actually came from one sheet of A4 craft card, and then all the remaining pieces were from offcuts of the same card which I had in my stash. So you may find you can actually use up some of the smaller scrap pieces of your chosen cardstock, but overall it uses about 2.5 sheets of A4 paper. So having said all that, it is a really fun project to put together, and I'm sure you will all have lots of fun in the decoration. You can see mine is quite basic and rudimental. I'm not actually going to be using this box, I've just made it for the fun of it. So without further ado, let's get started. So as I say, we're going to work through the pieces in the easiest order I feel for construction. To start with, you'll need 2 pieces for the sides of the body, so you'll have a left and a right obviously, and these will be 6 inches by 4 inches. Along the 4-inch side, score at 3.5 inches, and as I've indicated here, this is going to be the top lid flap, so that's this piece here. Rotate the piece to the long side. You want it so you've got the 1/2 inch score line at the top. Score down at 1/4 inch down to the 1/2 inch score line, 3 1/4 inches and 4 3/4 inches. Then you'll need a ruler and a pencil. Line your ruler up with the bottom edge of the cardstock and make a pencil mark at 1 1/4 inch, 3 3/4 inch and 5 inches. Move your ruler up so it's in line with the 3 1/4 inch track down the left hand side, and make sure that your ruler is running horizontally, and you're going to draw a line between 1 3/8 and 3 5/8. And then we're going to join the left hand end of this line up with this pencil mark on the bottom, and the right hand line up with this pencil mark on the bottom here. So this is starting to give us the shape of the legs. Remove your piece from the scoreboard, bring in your ruler and stylus, and we're going to score from the bottom of this 1/4 inch score line down to the bottom left hand corner, and then the bottom of this score line down to here. So we've used the 2 outer score lines. So this is the front leg, this piece here, and this is the back leg. So we're going to take our ruler, we're going to measure up the front leg and make a mark at 2.5 inches. Then you want to bring in your stylus again, and you're going to score between the end of the central score line that's left behind. So that's this mark here, and we're going to score across between these 2 pencil marks. And you should find that your line is 1 7/8 inch long. And when you score your diagonal, you can score along to the end or the outer edge of the cardstock. And this will actually just help with the burnishing, like so. So you want to do that on 2 pieces. So we're now going to fold and burnish, and what you want to do is you want to fold and burnish one where your pieces almost run in a mountain fold, and you want to do the other so that there will be a valley fold. And this means that when you come to cut the pieces out, you will have a left and a right hand side. So you will prepare the 2 pieces in exactly the same way, but when you come to fold the glue tabs, you'll fold them in opposite directions. So we will fold along the top lid flap, we will fold along the front leg, and we will fold along the diagonal, and you can extend the diagonal to the edge of the cardstock. So as you can see, I've got one where everything's in that direction and one where everything's folded in the other direction. The cutting will be exactly the same on both pieces. I'm going to turn it around, so I've got my top lid flap in front of me, and I'm going to cut down the score line and then down this back score line for the back leg. Rotate around again so you can see you've got your back leg shape there. I'm going to cut approximately 1/2 inch from this front edge score line, and you can cut the hole all the way up to the top. Just get the excess out of the way, like so. I'm going to just shape the bottom of that. I'm going to rotate the piece. So this is the glue tab we've just cut. I'm going to cut down the score line to the diagonal. Rotate and remove that piece. Then I'm going to cut into this triangle up to the score line and remove that piece, and then I'm going to cut that approximately 1/2 inch away, and then we're going to cut up the pen lines here, or the pencil lines, to create the shape for the legs. So that's my first piece, and that will be in this orientation. That's the back, this is the front leg, this is the neck, so that's going to be sitting like that. So I'm going to do exactly the same with this one. So that's my 2 body pieces. We're then going to work on the back end, and for this you'll need 1 piece which is 3.5 by 4.5. So if you have your piece in along the long side and along the top edge of the cardstock, make a pencil mark at 3/4 inch and 3 3/4 inch. Rotate the piece 180 degrees, and we're going to make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch, 1 3/4 inch, 2 3/4 inch, and 4 inches. Line your ruler up with the 3/4 inch track down the left hand side, and you're going to draw a line across between 1 7/8 and 2 5/8, like so. If you turn that piece around, we're then going to join up the ends of that line with these 2 marks on the bottom, so we're creating the shape of the back legs, like so. Take your stylus and ruler, and we are going to score between the pencil mark on the top edge down to the pencil mark on the bottom edge. Fold and burnish along the 2 score lines, and then we're going to cut approximately 1/2 inch away from the score line to create a glue tab, which you can see I've already done on this side. And then we're going to cut up these pencil lines again to create the back legs of the dog, like so. So now we can lay our pieces next to each other. So this is the reverse. I'm going to flip that over So I'll have one, so just check that your pieces line up, which you can say they do. So this is going to join onto here, and then this one is going to join like so. So at this stage you can check that those elements line up and make any adjustments if you need to. Remember, it's a handmade box, so don't stress about it too much, and you can always cover a lot with decoration. So I'm going to use double-sided tape just because this box is only for the purpose of this video. So this one is going to sit on here like so, and then this one is going to sit on there like so. So that is the back end of the box. So put that to one side to dry if you're using wet glue whilst we prepare the next piece. And this is the base, the internal base of the box. This piece is 5 7/8 times 4 1/4, and on all four sides score at 1/2 inch. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines, and we're basically just making a tray which is going to sit in between the two sides and the front and the back sections. So all we're going to do is make each of these sides a glue tab. I'm going to remove the corners all the way around. So you could individually cut squares like so, or you could cut in diagonally from one tab across to the other tab, so you're cutting a wedge into your tab at the same time. So that's our box base. Now you do want to make sure that you're burnish the tabs down thoroughly, because this is fitting into a specific size section. The piece is going to sit so it's above the cut lines on the legs. So just lay your piece in and just make sure that it is actually going to fit in between the two score lines like so. So I'm going to add my tape on. So I'm going to remove backing off of 3 sides. So this is going to sit in just above. I've put mine in about 1/8 inch. So then I'm going to pull up this back end, turn it over. So let's just push that into place, and then I'm going to pull up this last side. Flip that over. So that's the base of the piece in place. We're next going to work on the front end, and for this you'll have a piece which is 3 1/2 times 2 3/8. Along the long side on the top edge, make a pencil mark at 1/8 inch and 3 3/8 inch. Rotate the piece 180 degrees and make a pencil mark at 1 1/4 and 2 1/4. Bring your ruler in and line your ruler up with the 3/4 inch mark down the left hand side, and we're going to draw a line across between 1 3/8 and 2 1/8, and then we're going to join up those two pencil marks. So again, we're now putting in the shape of the front legs. So that's our piece. So bring in your scissors, and we're going to cut from the bottom right hand corner up to the pencil mark on the right hand side at the top, and do the same on the other side. Then we're going to cut and shape the front legs like so. So that's our front end. So just offer that up, make sure that sits in place, and that's going to sit on the front like so. So again, I'm going to add some tape. So this is going to stick onto the front of the base and on to the two sides. So I'm going to stick the two legs sides on and then push it back towards the base. So we've got the two sides, the front on the back, and the next piece we're going to add on is the neck. So for the neck, you'll have one piece, which is 2 3/8 times 3 1/4. And on the short side, score at 1/2 inch. Fold and burnish. I'm going to just take a wedge from the end of there. So this is going to sit down in the front like so. So I'm going to add tape onto these 2 glue tabs and tape onto this glue tab. This is going to stick in between like so. Fold these back down, and this is going to come up and stick over like so. So this piece here is going to support the head, which is obviously also going to have some items in it. So you might want to double up on this, or you might want to wait until we add the head on and then add another piece into the inside. So the final piece for the body will be the lid. And for this, you'll need a piece which is 4 times 3 1/4. Along the 4-inch side, score at 1/2 inch and 3 1/2 inches. Rotate to the short side, and we're going to score down to the 1/2 inch score line at 1/8 of an inch and 3 1/8 inch. Fold and burnish along the score lines. So this piece here, which doesn't have the extra score lines in, is the hinge. So what we're going to do is just take a wedge from the end of there like so. This piece here we're now going to shape, because this piece here is narrower than this piece here. So we're going to cut up the 1/8 of an inch score lines that we've just made, and then we're going to cut down to the bottom like so. So we're just shaping that end so it can fit in the top of the box. So again, I'm going to cut down the score line. I'm just going to do it from the other side because it will be easier. So at the moment, I'm going to leave the square. So this is going to sit, the hinge is going to sit under like so, and this piece is the same width as the back of the box. Now what you might need to do before you try and force anything in is shape the ends of these lid flaps here. So I'm going to bring in my scissors and just take some off of there so that it's not all interfering with another. Move these out of the way just so I've got plenty of room. So this is going to fit in the back like so, and then this is going to fit in the back like so. And as you can see, what I did with this one when I came to decorate it is I added a portion of the tail to that lid flap, so you can use that to get this piece open. So that is the body of the dog, and we're now going to work on the head, and exactly the same way we're going to make each of the pieces individually, and we'll glue them as we go along. We're going to start with what I've called the chin section, and this is one piece which is 3 1/4 times 2 5/8. On the short side, score at 1/2 inch and 2 1/8 inch. Rotate to the long side, and within the top 1/2 inch we're going to score down to the score line at 7/8 inch and 2 3/8 inch. Bring in your stylus and ruler, and we're going to score from the ends of these sections down to the ends of the score lines. So we'll be scoring like so and like so. And the length of your diagonals should be 1 7/8 inch. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Bring in your scissors. I'm going to take a wedge from the ends of the long glue tab, rotate the piece, and we now want to create a glue tab on the left and the right and to cut this glue tab. So it doesn't matter what order you do it in. So you might want to cut this section away and then cut a glue tab, or you might want to cut your glue tab and then cut this section away. It doesn't matter what order you do it in, but you want a piece which looks like this. So that is going to stick to the nose, and then for the nose you'll need a piece which is 2.5 times 1.25. Along the 1.25 inch side, score at 1/2 inch. Rotate to the long side. You've got your score line, 1/2 inch score line at the top, and we're going to score down to the score line at 7/8 of an inch and 1 5/8 of an inch. Rotate the piece 180 degrees so your score line and extra score lines are at the bottom, and we're going to make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch and 2 inches, and we're going to score from the pencil marks we've just made up to the end of the score lines. And now we're going to cut this the same way as we did with the chin. So I'm going to fold and burnish along the diagonals. So I'm going to cut 1/2 inch away from the diagonals, like so. Again, it doesn't matter what order you cut this in. I'm going to cut and make this top section into a glue tab. And then I'm just going to shape the ends. So you'll end up with a piece which looks like this. Bring in your chin. This edge here is going to stick on to there like so. So I'm going to stick that into place. So we've got our chin and our nose. The next two pieces are going to be for the eye section. So you'll need two pieces which are 3 1/8 times 2 3/4, and on the 2 3/4 inch side score at 2 1/4. And then you want to lay your piece along the long side with the 1/2 inch score line at the bottom and make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch and 1 1/4 inches. Rotate the piece so your pencil marks will be on the left and your score lines on the right, and you want to line your ruler up with the score mark which was at 1/2 inch, so this bottom one here, and put a pencil mark at 1/16 of an inch under 1/2 inch. Take your stylus and ruler and we're going to score between this top pen mark across to the top of this score line. And you should find that the length of that score line is 2 7/8 of an inch. And then measure between the pen mark here and your dot, and you want that to be 7/8 of an inch, which mine is. And then between the dot and the bottom of the score line should be 1 7/8 of an inch, which mine is. So what we're going to do, I'm going to mark it in pen, but we've got a score line here, and then we're going to cut between there and between there and there. Fold and burnish along your score lines. We're going to cut a wedge from this long tab. We're going to cut 1/2 inch away from this long score line, and then we're going to cut along these pen lines like so. So you'll do that twice, and if we bring it in at our chin piece, we're going to glue. I'm going to add tape. So I've added my tape onto this side. So I'm going to add this one on. So this is going to stick onto here like so. If I just mark, if you imagine your eyepiece is in this orientation, this is A and this is B. This is A and this is B. This one fits nicely onto there, and then this one fits nicely onto there. So that's how that comes together. So that is the eye, the nose and the chin section. So the next piece is going to be the front panel, and for this you'll need one piece which is 2 3/4 times 1/16 under 2 3/4. So on the bottom edge, make a pencil mark 1 inches and 1 3/4 of an inch, and then we're going to cut from the pencil mark up to the corners, and then that piece is going to sit on the front like so. And that sticks into place like so. Next we're going to make the top of the head, and this piece is 2 inches by 4 inches. Along the 2-inch side, score at 1/2 inch. Rotate, so you've got your score tab at the top, and we're going to score down within the 1/2 inch tab at 5/8 of an inch and 3 3/8 of an inch. Rotate to the 180 degrees so your score lines are at the bottom, and make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch and 3.5 inches. We're then going to score from the ends of these score lines down to the pencil marks on the bottom. Fold and burnish along the long score line, and fold and burnish along the side score lines. Bring in your scissors. We're going to cut to create a glue tab in this top section, like so. I'm going to cut along the score line to remove the corners of the top section like so, and then I'm just going to trim these down to create a 1/2 inch glue tab and shape the ends like so. Add glue to the long end glue tab, bring in my head. This is going to glue into place like so. So that is the top of the head. So next we're going to make the sides of the head, and you'll need 2 pieces, which are 2 1/8 times 3 5/8. Have your piece in on the long side and make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch. Rotate the piece to the short side, and your 1/2 inch pencil mark will be down the bottom here, and make a pencil mark on the top edge at 1.5 inches. Bring in your ruler and line your ruler up with the 2 1/4 inch trap. Make sure your ruler's running horizontally, and put a pen mark in at 1/16 of an inch over 1 5/8 of an inch. So here's my 1 5/8. I'm going to put a pen mark in between that and the 1 3/4. So we've got pen mark at the top, pen mark here, pen mark down here. So we're now going to join those up with our stylus to create some score lines. So we're going to score between here and here and here and here. Because of the shape of this one, we're going to cut it before we burnish. So I'm going to cut 1/2 inch away from the pencil mark here to create a glue tab, which is going to run along this bottom section, and then I'm going to cut 1/2 away along from this score line, but the flap that's left here, rather than be a glue tab, is going to be the lid flap that sits inside the box. So that is this piece here. So just think about that as you cut it. So I'm going to shape this one, and I'm going to cut in line with the score line, and then cut roughly 1/2 inch away. Take a slight wedge from the end, and now I'm going to go in and fold and burnish those. So you'll do that twice. So let's add this together. So this is going to add onto this top glue tab for the head, and then this piece is going to come round, add onto the eyepiece like so. So that's how our head looks so far. The next thing we want to do is add the head onto the neck. I've added tape on top of the tabs, and I'm going to stick this onto the neck. So you're going to stick the base of the side of the head. So if you have the chin facing the front, that's how it's going to stick on. So my head is now in place. You can see I'd added tape onto here and I shouldn't have done, they're actually the lid flaps. So now we're going to make the back lid, and the final piece is the lid for the head. So this is 3 1/4 inch squared. Along one of the sides, score at 1/2 inch and 2 3/4 inch. Rotate, so your score lines are now running top and bottom. And we're going to score down to the score line at 1/8 inch and 3 1/8 inch, like so. So what you can see is the top of the head is narrower than the back of the head, as it were. You can either have the lid so it opens in this orientation, or you could have it stuck here and it open from the back of the neck. So we're going to shape it now, but then which section you glue in is entirely up to you. So if we fold and burnish along these, we're then going to cut down the score lines within the 1/2 inch tab, and then we're going to cut across to the end of the score line. I'm just going to use my longer scissors. So we're going to cut across like so. Do the same this side. So decide which way you want your piece to hinge. I'm going to have mine so that it opens from the top as the original box. So I'm going to shape the longest tab like so. Once you've decided which way in your lid is going to go, that is going to smooth these out of the way, and that is going to sit inside the head like so. So you'll end up with something which looks like this, and then that is obviously ready for its decoration, etc. So obviously it does require lots of measuring and scoring, etc., but I think it's definitely worth it. So overall, I'm really thrilled with how the project has come out, albeit my decoration is rather basic. So there we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.